Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to round 2 of the RaceFace.Pro LMU Championship at the beautiful circuit of Sebring. Joining me here today, after having a bit of a swamp ride and going down the hanger straight, we have got Cameron de Bastos. Cameron, welcome to Sebring. Welcome to the home of one of the most prestigious tracks in America.
Yeah, well, good evening, Stephen. Good evening, everybody out there in the grandstands. Sebring, a very old historic track made up from an old airport and then just a bunch of concrete slabs placed together. So it's a very bumpy one. And I'm kind of curious to see what the drivers are going to do tonight. I've heard some paddock talk that they are struggling to sort out the bumps and the car's very, very bumpy. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage it out there tonight. And yeah, sometimes the pace is there, sometimes the pace is not. But I'm eager to see how the guys are going to handle the track out there tonight.
Multi-class action on a circuit like this is going to be incredible. But that being said, let's head over to qualifying as drivers are underway, setting their top laps. So as we move over, it is going to be an interesting one. 15 minutes to get the car sorted out, get your best lap times out there. But a massive welcome to our virtual grandstand. We got Javin Davis, Paul Fenter, Antonio Gamble, all coming in and shouting. I mean, this is going to be an incredible one, and we've got so many people watching out in the virtual grandstands. I mean, it's Sebring. It's a track that you cannot forget about, and honestly, a circuit that's going to travel and cause a little bit of a problem with some drivers. What is your feel on this, Cam? You've been out there in the GT3s, you've been there in the Hypercars. The circuit itself not favoring those that are super uber close to the ground, like the Peugeot of Chris Stoltz, who currently leads out the pack.
Well, as you mentioned, Stephen, it's very difficult for the drivers. It's a bumpy track, so and the last corner, the sunset corner, is very difficult for it because of its long sweeping, the sweepiness of that right-hander. So the drivers really have to be cautious and really have to line up the car perfectly in order for them to be able to go and really get a proper run there and not bottom out the car. You mentioned the Peugeot running very, very low. It is going to be difficult for that car due to the fact of it being so low to the ground. And many of these drivers, particularly the hypercars, they will be fouled up a little bit when it comes to the middle sector, especially behind the GT3s, due to the fact of its very tight and narrowing corners. I know every time that I had to race this track in a GT3 car, your heart jumps into your throat pretty much as you see a hypercar just come up and close up into in those long, fast sweeping corners. So it's a bit difficult, and drivers in their slower car has to be very cautious. But then also it is something that our stewards have spoken to with our hypercar drivers is be patient, guys. Take your moment, do not overshoot it, and be patient. There's no point in wrecking your race as well as anybody else's race. So it is something that the drivers have been spoken to and will be warned about. So it's going to be something else. But Sebring, very, very bumpy track. It's not your normal race track. It's very bumpy, made up of old runway. The long back straight is made up from an old piece of the runway from a military base from World War II, I believe, and they just pieced together slabs of concrete, which makes Sebring such a characteristic track. So drivers will have to be very, very cautious about what they're going to do here. And GT3 cars will have to be mindful of what approaches them from behind.
Well, this is the thing. A circuit that is challenging. But let's talk about some of the points at the moment, because we have got a very interesting time when it comes to the points. It's Chris Stoltz who leads out the championship with Jan Kleinans, Bernard Barkhuizen running in third. Jean Verveers, Jaco Kutzer, Nathan Watt in 6th place, and Brandon Kruger in 7th. We saw him not able to finish last week due to a bit of a collide with his own teammate sort of approach. That unfortunately took him out of the running. But also, looking over to our GT3s, which everyone tends to enjoy. I personally like a GTE, but the GT3s being a bit cheaper to run, to maintain, and to purchase is why it's one of the more superior GT categories in the world. Kyle Oosthuizen leads out the pack at the moment with a 2:03.5, and he is really trying to dig deep to get a little bit quicker. Now, from a GT3 perspective, we've got a monster field, 24 cars fighting out for the top run. And that is going to be the interesting matter, because not only have they got to contend with one another, they're going to have to fight it out. But Kyle Oosthuizen currently leads the championship on 25 points. Michael sits in 2nd place along with Dion Cup in 3rd in his Ferrari 296. Beggar Robles sits in 4th. And we've got Andre Machaka, who lies in 5th place. Jody Seidman going and lying in 6th. 7th place, Dennis Gillett, along with Dan Brown and Grant Leclerc in 9th. Riding out with Chris Heineke in 10th position. It is ultra competitive in the GT3 field. That's where I think we're going to see a lot of the ongoing battles of people pushing that a little bit harder, but also where we're going to see difficulty in trying to cut their way through the field, because this is going to be a bit of a rough run as Bego Krobler starting to feel what the tires are going to land up feeling like on ice cold, trying to get the car to go. Mercedes just not working out in his favor. He didn't have the best of runs in the last race. He's hoping to make it work this time around. But there's the times to play out. Stills leads out. 0.7 behind him is his own teammate, Kleinans. Verveers lies in 3rd with Barkhuizen and Kruger a little bit further back. Jaco Kutzer sits in 6th place. He went and rushed home just to be here for the race. He's unsure of the setup to make it work. Dion Cup moves himself into 3rd place, right behind Oosthuizen, also trying to dig that little bit deeper, try and get a bit closer. 0.4 of a second between the two of them, but Bego Krobler still holds out that top spot.
Absolutely great to see the guys battling out there. And you mentioned this is our biggest GT3 field that we've ever had on LMU. Even though it's our 2nd season, it's still quite a magnificent feat to be achieved, to have such a large grid running here along with our hypercars. And there was, as we were told, there were some words spoken about maybe running the LMP2 if there was enough interest there. But to see the cars really pushing it out there is something else. And whoever is brave enough to run it out there last second is very, very brave, because it will be making it quite difficult to do.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for the drivers. Try to push a little bit more, but time's starting to run out. 7 minutes left, and so far, no change at the sharp end of the field. Drivers still trying to figure out, oh, Bego Krobler, big loss of control into turn 2, and that did not work out, but it is Andre up into 2nd place. Our foreign driver coming in during the racing, doing an incredibly good job, and now trying to take the fight to the sharp end.
Yeah, absolutely great to see that our international people, drivers, hopping on and being able to put in a phenomenal time in terms of how to taking it to some of the more established names such as Bego Krobler there. But also we mentioned earlier that that the drivers such as the Omnius Gaming team last weekend was not the best for them in our hyperclass division. They really have to figure out what they want to do with the likes of Brandon Kruger, unfortunately not finishing there, but they will definitely try to put in as best time as possible and maximize the points tonight.
Well, this is it. You got to fight it out tooth and nail to make it work out in your favor. How the driver's going to be able to push that little bit more, it's going to be the interesting part to it. At the moment, though, undefeated at the top of the rung, Chris Stolz not losing out any time. Carl Oosthuizen puts himself into 1st place with a 2-minute 2.6, with Bego Krobler now in 2nd place. We have got Virtia Buerta, a driver that was on a bit of a good wicket, but unfortunately landed off into the dust more than once, and he's going to have to work out how to improve from race 1, throw a bit of that bad luck out of the door. That being said, it's still going to be an interesting time. Dion Cup a little bit further down is in 5th place with Jeff LaRue, keeping the pressure on the back. But take a look, 2 drivers yet to set a time on the board. Jody Cinnamon and Arno Kraus are yet to put a time on the board. JD Gildenays is yet to put a time successfully on the board as well. So he's the last of the rolling GT3s. The other 2 are sitting in the pit lane, and they will not be going out for qualifying by the looks of it, because they've only got 5 minutes left.
It's kind of an interesting strategy that's being deployed here by these drivers, as I do not know, well, kind of curious. Some might be trying to avoid the likes of maybe that turn 1 carnage, one can say, or just maybe strategy, hoping to just preserve the tires a bit more. But the thing is, with these hypercars, they don't really have tire warmers anymore on them, so the tires are ice cold as soon as you leave out of the garage, and the GT3s are the only ones that still have it. So it's a bit of a tricky one to do, but we all know that the first corner at Sebring, it's a long left-hander, and there is sometimes carnage where the drivers might jump the gun too early, and the person in front of them is not able to have the same start as them. So they have to be very mindful and very cautious of what they want to do.
I've got to correct you there. The GT3s also don't have tyre warmers on their cars. And there is a specialized rule, and for anyone that's done karting For anyone that's played with semi-slick tires or even slick tires knows this little fun trick where you just happen to leave your set of tires out in the sun. Just, there was no room in the pits. You put it out in the back, it just happens to be in the sun and the rim happens to get warm and everything. There's actually a rule from the FIA saying not gonna happen anymore. And FIM and FIK, same thing. You can't do that. You're not allowed leaving tires outside for it to gain a little bit of heat. That was getting utilized quite heavily last year and the year before. And a rule came in from last year saying no more doing that. You're not allowed. That's an unfair advantage. Some might say that it's more eco-friendly that way, but others say it's too much of an advantage if you live in a sunny place or you just happen to have the right pit.
Oh, that's kind of interesting because I do recall that they might have mentioned somewhere that I believe was at Le Mans this year that say you're not even allowed anymore to leave the tires out in the sun.
No,
Well,
you're not allowed. You have to have it on a tire rack inside your pit, no matter how tight it is. And that's purely on the factors everyone trying to get the temperatures up a little bit forward. Jan Bluknoot out into first place. An interesting drive on his part out there in the BMWs. I got to say, Bluknoot, a driver that's kept it fairly consistent through his races, hasn't had the best of luck, but Sebring playing into his strengths here.
Yeah, kind of interesting to see how he's able to do this because, I mean, the mighty BMW is a car that's quite strong on the straights. We know that. We saw that in the previous season also. And with Sebring, with some of the straights being, well, it's long, but also fast-flowing corners, I think it might suit the BMW quite well, especially with being able to rattle over these curves. But also do not count out the likes of the Mercedes. It is a fast car. It does like to just ramp over the curbs and eat them for breakfast. So it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers are able to really get it out there. But as we take a look at Jan Bluknoot, just a bit of weaving around there on the back straight on my side. Just getting some heat into the tires before he starts his final flying lap. And this is where the drivers will really have to count it. If you do start your final flying lap, it's a long run into the right hand and then it's flat out for quite a while. And it's very close to on that wall in order to get a perfect run. But drivers will have to be careful. You spot for a very small brake marker on your left-hand side, or right-hand side. Quick lift with the brakes, maybe a small dab. Get as close as possible to the inside wall and then run out straight again all the way to the edge. And then it's a bit of a tricky sector, turn 2 and 3. Hard on the brakes, hard left, and then quick hard on the right in order to really get the car settled. And then just before you think you can breathe again, you're on the brakes again and it's left hand again. Now you get a bit of a braking and it goes down into a very, very slow hairpin that is very tricky. And it's a place for a lot of overtaking opportunities, but the drivers will have to be cautious there because one nudge there and you go off into the dirt. But spot your brake point, hard on the brakes, and it's a slow rotation into that right-hander. And then, getting it loose is Bluknoot there, and unfortunately running wide, but he's going to complete the lap. And now it's again flat out. Again, emphasizing Sebring is quite a long flowing track, but he is seeming to abandoning this lap yesterday. But unfortunately, a bit of a mix up there in his final hairpin sector there, and that just shows how easy it is if the tires are not up to temp. But then it's hard on the brakes here on this little sector, on the right, and then flat out again over that curb if you want to mount it, and then flat out again into another hard braking into the right-hander. And now this is where the drivers will be able to take a bit of a breath and just relax. It's flat out for the next section all the way until the final piece before we head into what is called, funny enough, this Le Mans chicane for some reason. Even though it's nothing like Le Mans, it's still named, but it's flat out and then bit on the brakes, just slow the car enough, mount that curb a bit, and then again flick it all the way to the left. It is a long run, but as you see the likes of Bluknoot popping into the pits saying he's rather just going to park the car, leave the tires on as best and as hard as they can, and maybe carry them over into the race. But that is our qualifying session now over. Let's take a look at the standings.
Well, that was one of the new pit lanes, so for anyone that's unsure about Sebring, they went and redid how you actually get into the pits to be able to get sorted out, especially with a bigger field. And that comes in through the back of the circuit. You can get yourself in. It's not just a quick, easy off the straight like most people would know. That being said, however, end of qualifying, drivers put in a good stead. Some drivers like Jason Farmer just waits it out on track. Mike McGear still pushing that a little bit more, try get a lap time out on the board. Jody Sederman and Arno Kraus will not be setting a time, but it's Mike McGeer to really put the hammer down. Brings the Mercedes across the line. 16th position. Is this going to be enough to move him up? Unfortunately not. He will hold 16th, but did have the best final sector for himself. But Sector 1 and Sector 2 was definitely a punch in the gut. That is for certain.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, a 51 in at first sector compared to his competitors running 46s. Unfortunately, not really what he wanted. So, unfortunately, just going, I said unfortunately a lot there, just going and abandoning that lap, but completing it still and really claiming a good third sector there for himself there. But let's take a look at our standings as the drivers are prepping to get the cars out onto the circuit.
And there we go. Chris Stolz and Johan Kleinans will line up on first and second. Right behind them will be likes of Jean Verveers, Bernard Barkhuizen, along with Brandon Kruger, Jaco Kutzer, and rounding out our hypercars is going to be Nathan Watt. But you have got our GT3s.
Yes, starting in first position for our GT3s is the Johan Blichnout, really putting a massive performance there. In second place, we have Carl Oosthuizen, followed by Dion Kapp, these two sharing a great battle over at Fiji. And then in fourth place, we've got Andrei Mateshka, our Chechen driver, joining us there. In fifth place, Bego Grobler, and right behind and alongside him, we have the likes of Ulrich Kleinans. In seventh position, we have the likes of Viete Buerta, and right next to him, Michael van Rooyen. In ninth position, Jeff Leroux, lining up alongside is the likes of Guillaume Mouton, hoping to complete a lap compared to last season or last week, where he was not able to do one. Then finally, in 11th place, we've got Esteban Pretorius, followed by Dennis Gillett in the McLaren, and then in row 13th position of GT3s, Dane Brown, alongside him is Grant Clear in an Aston Martin. Then row 15, in position 15, we've got the likes of Jason Farmer, and then also 16th, we've got Mike McGeer. 17th, JD Geldenhuys, and 18th, a newcomer to the series, Hilton Nixon. In 19th position, we've got two McLarens lined up side by side in 19th and 20th with Gerard Venter and Conrad Martin. And then all the way at the back, we've got Chris Martin in a Porsche, and alongside him, Hion Bernardi. And then finally, Arno Kraus, and finally, Jody Sederman, rounding out our GT3 class, not putting in a lap time.
This is going to be an interesting time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And if you're joining us and just arrived, welcome to RaceFace.Pro. Welcome to round 2 of the Le Mans Ultimate Championship Season 2, where we're going to have hypercars and GT3s brawl it out for victory. This is where it gets a little bit more tense for drivers to fight their way towards the top. And with Sebring, well, who can survive as they make their way around the final corner into the main straight? Chris Stolz, Johan Kleinans, teammates and our rivals line up side by side. John Verveers with Bernard Barkhuizen as they get ready for the lights. Down the main straight they go. Lights on, lights on, lights on. Gap made.
Green flag.
And green. We're going racing. Bernard Barkhuizen immediately trying to go for the attack, trying everything he can to get the pass done and dusted early as he gets in between Chris Stolz and Johan Kleinans. He's fighting side by side and trying to get through. Kleinans now trying to hunt down, Chris Stolz now trying to keep it ahead of Bernard Barkhuizen side by side. A little bit of argy-bargy between the two of them as they continue on the drive. Oh, contact with likes of John Verveers up against the rear of Bernard Barkhuizen, now trying to hunt around the outside. Johan Kleinans, Brandon Kruger, Jaco Kutzer, and Nathan Watt still fighting out down towards our GT3s. However, it is Johan Blichnout and Carl Oosthuizen going and giving a bit of a bump draft, aiming for the inside as Carl Oosthuizen goes for the defense, tries to look for a pass, couldn't quite get it. Blichnout holds first and continues on the drive.
So from great driving here from our hypercars, and looking between there, Chris Stolz really putting on a defensive masterclass, learning from what he experienced last week, and trying to pull a massive gap over the likes of Bernard Barkhuizen, already a 1.6 second gap over them, and just pulling there. Unfortunately, Johan Kleinans losing out at that start, but the person that capitalized on it is the likes of Jean Verveers in that Toyota, really going and capitalizing on both situations there. But take a look at our newcomer there, Nathan Watt. He comes from a GT3 BMW and is still sticking it out in the Peugeot. So it's not
And he's in
Peugeot
the older Peugeot.
It's the older one, the no-wing Peugeot.
That's
and
got less
quite
grip.
interesting to see.
That's got less grip. That car right there will battle with the rear end. It's got some serious top end, but hasn't got the grip to contend with everyone ahead of him. Now, interesting one. Kyle Oosthuizen leading out the GT3 field along with Jan Blicknout, chasing him down. The two working in tow with one another, trying to break away from the field, but it looks like Blicknout not having an easy time to get past. Looks to try go for the undercuts on Kyle Oosthuizen, wasn't able to do it. Kyle guards that inside apex to make sure that he's not going to lose out any drive whatsoever. So fight out for our LM GT3 class. This is turning into a bit of a wild one. Going a little bit further back, Conrad Martin and the likes of Dan Brown now trying to catch up in the Mercedes. Also putting the pressure onto the McLaren driver, hoping to force a mistake out of Conrad Martin. He goes side by side into turn one. Look for the cone on the fence, middle of the corner. That is going to be your brake marker to get onto, well, your acceleration, and you get going. And we did see it slightly in shot before it disappeared, but immediately Jeff LaRue tried capitalizing, carried a lot of momentum through turn one, and carries the momentum into turn two. LaRue up through the order. Conrad Martin now in the clutches of Dion Cup, who didn't have a good start, fell down the order. Now remember, Dion Cup started out in the top 5. He's now completely caught out.
Kind of losing out there, unfortunately, but I'm just taking a look at our tire selection that the drivers are having there. Most of our hypercars choose to stick with a medium tire, but Jan Kleinart's going for a different strategy here, choosing soft front tires and then 2 medium tires on his rear. Quite an interesting one compared to all the other 3 Ferraris that are currently running there, where all the other drivers are all sticking with medium. The question is, does Jan know something that we do not know?
Going for a completely different set doesn't quite work out, because your wear down on the tires is going to be far more aggressive, and that immediately has Brandon Kruger up on the inside. Softer tires are going to take a hammering throughout the race, while your mediums would be doing just fine. Unfortunately, that is going to also have a bit of a understeer that starts to come in with a bit of oversteer. You just can't trust the front end. You don't really mix and match tires like this, but it's very interesting to see the drivers trying something a little bit different to move up through the order. However, it hasn't played out in his favor, and he's down into 5th place. Brandon Kruger now edging out a little bit of a gap as well to try and accelerate. Kyle Oosthuizen fights his way through, but we do have a McLaren that's a bit slow on the exit and losing a lot of time.
Curious to see what has happened there. Only 3 McLarens here running, and trying to see who is the McLaren that is running so slow here. Unfortunately, losing out some drive there, but really hoping to capitalize still. But just still looking at the likes, well, this battle between our 4th and 5th hyperclass cars, Jan Kleinart and Brandon Kruger. These two really giving as much as they possibly can, but the 3 front runners have all decided to book their ticket and fly out of here. But now again, shorter format compared to last week, so we do not know what the drivers are actually for themselves.
Brandon Kruger, snap oversteer on the exit, putting the power down a little bit too hard there, and nearly had Kleinart climbing into the rear. I mean, this is going to be an absolutely brutal run. Now, we're also trying to figure out who that McLaren is that's landed up in a problem, but we're seeing a Merc fight here. JD Gildenaes, Mike McGear, Hilton Nixon, Dan Brown, Jeff LaRue, Dion Cup, all getting into a brawl with one another. And this is turning into a bit of a light one, as you see Hilton Nixon go and turn round. JD Gildenaes went across the nose of Hilton Nixon and is in the wall. JD Gildenaes into the wall and out of the brawl. Hilton Nixon was able to get a little bit further up the road, but not quite the way he wanted to have it happen. Dan Brown falls a little bit short behind, and Jeff LaRue in the tow as well.
Unfortunately, just losing out there, but the mysterious McLaren without the wing is the likes of Dennis Gillett, and it will definitely be difficult for him to keep the car on track. You do not have that rear downforce and to keep the car stable, so he's just bringing the car hopefully around the circuit in order to bring it into the pits. He is entering the final bit of sectors now, only now, in order to really make it out there.
Big mistake for Hilton Nixon. Nearly went through the entirety of the field and literally thread the needle. Jeff LaRue saved it, and Dion Cup as well. Hilton Nixon now gets right onto the back of Dion Cup, but that was extremely close to nearly a 3-car pile-up here at Sebring, and that was just pushing that a little bit too hard. Got a little bit too excited, and unfortunately, the rears just did not want to bite.
unfortunately not working out there. But JD Geldernaar is now popping into the pits. That front end of that Merc not looking happy at all, and really needing to get it getting some repairs done on it, so using the new pit lane, not compared to the old one that most of us are familiar with. Dennis Gillett also into the pits to hope and get that rear wing bolted on, but he has lost a significant amount of time compared to any of the other GT3 cars. But let's take a look at our hyperclass here. The fight between 5th and 6th already. Werner Kruger has opened up the gap regarding to Jan Kleinans there, and now it's Jaco Kutte hunting down the likes of Jan Kleinans, hoping to put some pressure on the teammate of Chris Stalls there. But you mentioned it earlier before, Steven, Nathan Watt, just as I looked over on his side, unfortunately having a bit of a moment and losing it. The Peugeot, the very old spec Peugeot, not happy around this circuit, and we mentioned it, you mentioned specifically saying that no rear wing will make it vulnerable for many problems that the other cars will not be experiencing.
The problem is with the hypercar class, if you're not used to it, it's brutal. But that being said, when you go for a radical design, like what Peugeot did, it unfortunately plays into the part as well, where you can lose out a bit of time. The no rear wing was to increase top end, but soon as you get into more high-speed corners, it didn't want to stick compared to its counterparts. So, here at Sebring, where there isn't much grip to deal with, unfortunately drivers will have that starting to fade away. Take a look at Jason Farmer and Andre, who are climbing all over the back of one another, fighting out for 4th and 5th in the GT3 field, and they will see the likes of Kuya Maton a little bit up the road. Michael van Rooyen and Blichnout still brawl it out between one another, 1st and 2nd. Take a look at this. Michael van Rooyen on a bit of a brawl and doing a splendid job out towards the sharp end of the field. I mean, the Aston Martin leads out the pack and has broken away. I mean, this was originally Carl Oosthuizen and Blichnout, and it looks like Michael van Rooyen just waited for the opportune moment to put the hammer down and unleash that naturally aspirated V8 and getting away from the straight 6 turbocharged car that's, well, I have to say, it's a BMW with an asthma pump. That's why they needed to have the big nose on the front. Still don't like it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Steven, I was about to mention it with the likes of Carl Oosthuizen. He was in a great battle with the likes of Johan Blichner, but unfortunately into turn 3 might have gone a bit of a tap on the right rear and it spun him around and dropped him all the way from the lead to where he's currently at in 6th position. He will not be happy, and the team will also not be, hoping to just calm him down and say, listen, we still got 50 minutes left, 50 minutes 40 seconds left in this race. You can claw back. The machine is underneath you. You do have the power. As I take a look at his timing sectors now, he just set the personal best, well, the race best lap, race best time in sector 1 now, and hoping to claw back, already having the best time of a 2:04 for the entire GT3.
Well, our hypercars starting to cut their way through the LM GT3s. Jan Verveers capitalizing on the moment, but Brandon Kruger outbraking with that Ferrari 499P, and the Toyota just not able to close up the gap as yet. They do have Johan Kleinans and Jaco Kutte right on the tail as well. This is now an interesting circumstance, because this is where you're going to have to rely on a little bit of patience and at the same time get ready to put the hammer down when you need to break away. For Brandon Kruger, it's trying to open the gap and break the slipstream of likes of Jean Verveers, but also not to get boxed in. For Jean Verveers, keep the pressure on, get right onto the tail, look for any opportune moment to get by, and utilize a bit of a block on contact. Kruger, Verveers off, and it is both into the wall. It does look like a slight little clip came in for Kleinans. He was thankfully still alive after that one, but a big off. A dive on the inside, a turn across the nose, and I think a few broken cars there.
Yeah, I assume 2 might have been broken there. That Toyota not being able to really slow down and losing it into the chicane there. But I just take a look at that rear damage of that Toyota. It is absolutely not a happy camper. The front end is damaged and the rear. It is seeming to be going back to pits, but not really happy, just undrivable in the pits, getting it repaired, hoping to get something repaired out of the car, but definitely not how Johan Verveers wanted with this lone Toyota. But heartbreak, Steven, as he has picked up a drive-through for speeding into the pits, unfortunately, and now that means that he has to get the car fixed, come back again, go around again into the pits in order to get that car fixed. But also, Brandon Kruger has popped into the pits, suffering damage yet again. Now the question is, will the team send him out saying, listen, we already had a DNF in Fuji, we cannot have it at all happen at this race now, we need you to really push it. But take a look at Carl Oosthuizen. He is absolutely
Oh,
flying
Michael
out this
van Rooyen
field.
into the wall. Michael van Rooyen into the wall. Went and hooked the dirt. And unfortunately, there was another contact. Another contact with... Who was that? That Michael van
That's
Rooyen ran
Gio
into.
Maton.
That's
Gio
Maton.
Maton. That was third place behind them, and unfortunately, what has happened there? I need to see what's going on here. Because
Michael van Rooyen clipped the dirt, came off, rejoined, and clipped into Maton, taking both out of the race. That is an unfortunate circumstance that's come in for both drivers, and it will throw them in the pits. Lots and lots of damage on that Aston Martin, as we do have Crystals trying to figure out how can he get past the ongoing fight of Jason Farmer and Carl Oosthuizen. Takes a deep send on the inside, gonna try and keep it flat out, and gets past both BMWs without too much of a hitch. But that is not the way the drivers wanted to deal with the race going on. Jean Verveer's down the order. He needs to try and put down a little bit more pace, and there will be no blue flags for him. He is racing for overall track position behind our GT3s. That is a nightmare scenario to the likes of Jean Verveer. So he has to try and circulate. Next up, he's got to get past the likes of Andre, and he immediately has got the second place. Bernard Barkhuis and Johan Kleinans, they're going to be fishing their way past as he's a lap down the order. But the Hypercars trying to slice their way through the GT3 traffic. The GT3s just being so cautious with them around because there is only so much room on the circuit. There's only so much room for error. And so far, first, second, and third of the GT3 cars are all within earshot of one another. Make it 4 of them into a fight. I mean, this is just a battle of notes, and Carl Oosthuizen leaning on the rear of Verveers, who loses it. Verveers has gone round, middle of the circuit. The GT3 is having to go diving into the dirt to avoid him.
Yeah, unfortunately, not really what's needed. Carl is really trying to make up positions there, and has gotten back into the lead through the bad luck of others, unfortunately. But unfortunately, we do have 2 other retirements. Gio Maton has parked the car along with Michael van Rooyen, both cars not being able to get it fixed. But Jean Verveer still has a drive-through penalty he needs to serve, and I believe he was hoping to just get around there, but again, not being able to. And another retirement is our second Peugeot, Nathan Watt, unfortunately not being able to get the car around and struggling, saying that the old spec car is not the one that he wants.
It's unfortunate to go and see him running into a bit of an issue, but there's quite a few retirements out there. Arno Kraus, JD Sederman, Michael van Rooyen, Kriel Maton, Nathan Watt, Easton Pretorius, and Chris Heineke not able to get out onto the track. Jean Verveer's in pit lane is also trying to get himself sorted out. I mean, we do have a drop round in the championship that drivers can utilize here in LMU, but you do not want to have 2 DNFs in a row, as we do see the likes of Dion Cup battling with a bit of top end as he fights it out against Gerald Fence's McLaren. And that Ferrari looking a little bit second-hand on the nose, a little bit second-hand on the rear. Not quite how you want carbon fiber to be looking like.
Absolutely not there, but I must say that the drivers are trying their best in order to really keep it out on track there. Unfortunately, we did speak about it earlier in the opening, that getting past the GT3 cars is going to be difficult, but now you also have to be in your own battles in order to sort out what's going on there. But it really makes it difficult there. But just taking a look at our 2 leaders here, they are absolutely leaders.
This is Jaco Kutzer and Johan Kleinans running, sitting in 3rd and 4th as it stands in the Hypercars. The 2 of them keeping each other busy for the race duration. They have avoided a few different problems during the course of the race. That's helped them out to try and extend their gap to the rest of the field. Kruger, unfortunately, miles down the pack, will be losing out time, and once again, more points being lost in the run. Both trying to push a little bit harder as they get down the back straight, where pit lane actually is for these cars, instead of going to the old pit, which was at the front. That being said, taking a
The
look.
new pit has caught me. I will say the new pit has caught me off guard completely when I first drove in this sim, especially Rod.
Well, Jason Farmer and Andre fighting it out. It is a BMW lockout at the sharp end of the field. Ulrich Kleinans out there in the Aston Martin trying to figure out how he can move a little bit further up in the order. In a little bit no man's land at the moment. Dan Brown, Dion Cup are away from him. Gerald Fenter and Gideon Benardi are keeping each other busy. But it is still open cards for a lot of these drivers. And that being said, it is also still time for a pit stop. We've seen drivers push a little bit harder now, and planning out the pit stop is going to be the crucial moment. When are you going to get in the box? When is the right moment, especially in this type of race? We saw that a lot of drivers risked it to get down to the last 20 minutes in race 1. Well, let's see how it's going to do in round 2 for the drivers to go that little bit further, or are the tires starting to feel that severe drop-off point coming in?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what they will be doing, because in race 1 we had a longer race, so meaning that a pit stop was mandatory. But now I want the drivers, I want to actually challenge them almost to see, listen, I want to run at one point, I want to run a shorter strategy, box and get on a fresher set of tires, and hopefully that might be something that we may be considering. Hopefully gets them a bit of an advantage, as they will be able to gain on them a lot better compared to other drivers who will be on all tires and able to nurse them a bit more. And that's something that will really need to be played out by the drivers. And maybe it's a bit of change of strategy instead of just racing from flag to flag, and maybe make it a bit interesting for us as well as our spectators.
Mike McGear getting to grips with the GT3 cars after his long hiatus from sim racing, fighting out with Gideon Benardi. These two are having a nice clean battle with one another. They're slowly starting to close up on Gerard Fenter, who's up a little bit further ahead, but trying to figure out what is going to be the right idea in it. Brandon Kruger is in a world of hurts at the moment, down in 19th position, and has to climb past all 14 of our GT3 cars before he even rejoins at the back of the hypercar field. I mean, that is just an absolute nightmare. He gets past Vietia Buerta and starts to run away on Begor Krobler as well. But I mean, this is just a nightmare situation for him, not wanting to get a DNF in round 2 after he got one in round 1. And that's all comes in for the championship points at the end of the season. It always comes down to that final point, as we had the iRacing show exactly that. 1 point separated down in 5th and 6th position, and a win goes and moves a driver from the Pro-Am into 3rd place, who was never in contention for it. That is how crucial these points are by the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is something that we always like to see, is this close battles that has happened between our drivers, especially when it comes right down to the very
Oh, we got a car off in the dirt. One BMW at turn 3, parked off into the dirt. And who would that be? We do have a BMW parked off there, and we can try and understand who it is that's actually just stopped. They've parked on circuit. Dennis Gillett still out on circuit. JD Kildenas, Vietia Buerta, Begor Krobler still out there. There is a very, very broken BMW that's just parked in the wall at turn 3. Might have gone back to pit, as that could have been Jeff LaRue. No, possibly not. But unfortunately, out there in the Valentino Rossi colours, that Team 46. Gerald Fenter and Mike McGear continue on their drive, trying to move up through the order. They're currently lying in 7th and 8th of our GT3 field, and continue to try and figure out what is going to be the best time to move through the order. Our GT3s still out there in force, despite a number of non-finishers. Hilton Nixon, Andre are out of the running. So our Chechen is out of the running. Hilton Nixon, brand new driver to LMU, out of the running, who have now done themselves out of the race. Arno Kraus and Jody Cinnamon, who did not make the start-finish line, they are also out. So we've got a number of do-not finishers here. Mike McGear goes up on the inside of Gerald Fenter. Can he control the understeer? Starting to creep in. He does lean on the brakes a little bit harder to keep Gerald Fenter at bay and push him off the apex.
just shoving his nose a bit there, saying, listen, I want to get the gap here, and just pushing him off there, and hopefully to get a better run there. But we did mention the likes of our lone hypercar, Barry Kruger, really having to fight his way through what well, essentially is the whole field. Yes, he has a stronger car and faster car, but that does mean he needs to still be very mindful of what he is going to do. Because even though he might be laps down, he needs to be careful. He is a faster car. It's up to him to pass the drivers much more safer compared to the GT cars.
He's also 2 laps down on the hypercar field, having to try and fight his way through. Crystals leads out the hypercars with Bernard Barkhuizen in second place, really jumping over the curbs with the 499P. Not quite how the Ferraris like to prance, but he is trying his best out there. He's got Johan Kleinans running in 3rd place. Unfortunately, Kleinans dropping down from 2nd position off the start of the race. Jaco Kutzer out in 4th place, keeping himself all together with Brandon Kruger rounding out the pack of our hypercars. 2 laps down. John Verveers and Nathan Watt, unfortunately, out of the running. Taking a look at our GT3s, it's Kyle Oosthuizen who leads out the pack with Johan Blicknout in 2nd place, trying to close down that gap rather quickly at the moment. Jason Farmer holds 3rd place for the Griffin Sim Racing team, trying to chase down the Omnius Gaming Johan Blicknout. Ulrich Kleinans lies in 4th place out there in the Aston Martin Verstappen colours and enjoying it. Dion Cup in 5th place along with Dan Brown. Mike McGear a little bit further back as we do see our leader of the hypercars, Chris Stolz, to come and get on by. Peugeot saying, here we go, put down the power, goodbye, thank you. I'm not going to give you even a slipstream. Gerald Fenter and Gideon Bernardi are right on the back of one another. The 2 of them are going to be fighting their way out through the order. Grant McClure and Conrad Martin follow through in 10th and 11th. They got Brandon Kruger trying to slice his way back up through the field. Brandon has gotten ahead of Beggar Krobler, who lies 12th of the GT3s. Dieter Buerta, JD Geldernace, Dennis Gillett is out there. Jeff LaRue, unfortunately, is not out on circuit and is a non-finisher as well.
Now, I received some news from the team of Jeff LaRue, again experiencing some technical issues with the car and not being able to run it. So it's something that he is trying to figure out with the car and how to make it work, but not working on his favor again for the 2nd time in this championship, and he's hoping to
contact!
Get it better.
Big contact coming in. Gerard Fenter. A little bit of a touch came from Gideon Bernardi, and that just put him into the wall. Nose first for the McLaren. That is a big knock on, and that's brought the likes of Grant McClure a little bit closer to try and get the pass done and dusted. But it does look like Dieter Buerta, just slightly up the road, has a chance to unlap himself.
No, I'm pretty sure Dieter Buerta will be hoping for the best of both worlds there in order to get past his car, but he also has to be mindful because right behind him is a very fast flying Ferrari, a factory privateer colored Ferrari, hoping to get past as he splits them both and pushes them side by side with one another between him and the other McLaren, and really hoping to get the lap back there. Dieter Buerta does make quick work of it as he flies on through in order to follow the Ferrari as best as he possibly can and snatch a bit of that slipstream that is coming off of that car.
Gerald Fenter, unfortunately, rear contact going and knocking one of his drivers into the wall, unfortunately. That has brought Grant McClure a little bit closer. Conrad Martin also capitalizing on the mistake that has been made as he moved up into 11th position. Now, this brings into an interesting part of the race of the pit stops, the strategies that come into play as we see Grant McClure all over the back of Gerald Fenter. Both drivers originally did have a plan A of when they were going to get into the box. We're now 34 minutes in. That's left for the race. Now the drivers have to start considering how much fuel are they going to save, how far are they going to go down the order to move up through it. I mean, this is all tough circumstances. Are you going to change tires, or are you just going to fuel and go, because that's going to save you a bit of time in the pits? What's going to be the bigger plans here? And many of these drivers are going to be running through all those concerns.
Yeah, there's something that drivers and the teams will have to be looking at in order to figure out what's going on there. But I'm just taking a look at the overall lap times, well, the best lap times for the entire field separately to see what they are doing. And funny enough, Stephen, the only cars that have ever gone below what the other drivers are running is the likes of Chris Stalls and Carl Oosthuizen. Carl Oosthuizen unfortunately losing first place there in the class to Johan Blicknout, but he's the only driver to have touched a sub 2 minute 4. as well as Crystals is the only driver in the Hypercross car to run a sub 1 minute 47. So the Peugeot is definitely flying, and the BMW is showing again that it is not a car that you have to look away from.
It's always a tough time out there. Drivers trying to figure out what is going to be the next step. And it's all about trying to navigate the field as our drivers focus on the charge. I mean, this is where life gets rather interesting for many of the drivers. How far are you willing to go? Also, we got to bring in a little bit of concern, as it's all about your engine energy management for our hypercars. They're going to have to contend with that as a big factor for their race. Who's going to be able to go that little bit more? Who's be able to carry a little bit more pace through the race compared to others? Now, the GT3s do not have to worry about virtual energy that gets put to them, but the hypercars definitely have a big concern, because that can land up in a disqualification out of the race.
Yeah, we have seen it in the previous season where a driver unfortunately goes and loses a podium finish, I believe, due to running out of fuel. So he has to be very, very mindful of what they're doing. But I'm just taking a look at the virtual energy of these cars so far, and I do, from what I can see, is none of our hypercars have decided to short fuel at all and rather run a full tank until the very, very end. But Crystals, again, is just putting on a phenomenal performance. We're taking a look at our GT3 cars. I do believe most of the cars are in a safe zone above the 40% mark for virtual energy. But as I scan through the field here, Stephen, there's one car that's catching my eye, and that is the likes of Dane Brown, only sitting on about 13% of energy remaining, or fuel remaining in the
contact
that we will have to box.
Contact. Gerald Venter getting a little bit of a rear end touch, and that was from Grant McClure. That's immediately brought Conrad Martin into the fray. The Aston Martin just giving a little bit of a left tap to the McLaren, going a little bit too slow. Now Conrad Martin all over the back of Gerald Venter, trying to figure out how he can get past in a rate of knots in the slipstream, switches to the outside, heading to the hairpin at the top. This is where it gets tricky. Late on the brakes, and it immediately comes into the show that Gerald Venter...
Straight on.
Yep. A little bit too late on the brakes there.
I mean, the McLaren is a phenomenal car on his brakes, with his braking happening mostly at the very, very end of his braking cycle. But you have to be either Danny Rick or be able to stick your foot out of the car door in order to make such a move, stick in that such late braking into that corner. I mean, he did have a car on the inside, might have missed the braking points, but I will say hats off from trying to make a move that late, but also very, very brave and respectful to the rather take the run off instead of trying to still make the corner and maybe ruining another driver's race.
Now, Dan Brown and Dion Cup now in a fight with one another. Dion sporting quite a bit of damage on his car, trying to get past Dan Brown ahead of him. The Mercedes fights out, goes to the outside, loses out the position as Dion Cup goes out a little bit wide, tries to bring it back late apex. So you can see battling with a bit of understeer as he crawls out of the corner. But Dan Brown still lurking around. Not quite the pace he needs coming out, but the sun is starting to set here at Sebring, and that means sun will be getting in your eyes rather quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. That's something me and you know very much well, staring through the cockpit of a hypercar, especially the BMW hypercar. You can't see anything going down the long back straight and then into Sunset Corner. That's where it gets its name from. And it's very blinding, and that's where the drivers normally have to pull down a bit of a visor, or in the sim, hopefully turn down the HDR settings in order not to really get blinded by it, because it does feel like you're staying directly into the actual Sunday. But I'm curious to see what Dane Brown is still going to do. He is going down on the virtual energy chart, so he will have to go and pit. But Brandon Kruger is already making up a lot of positions. Yes, he will be 2 laps down on the likes of the other hypercars, but he is climbing back into the top 10 of the overall standings, already up into 9th, making moves on Dane Brown as well as Dion Cup, and really flying past there. But Dion Cup, again, a podium finish in last week's race and hoping to repeat it again, but from the current position where he's standing now, it is going to be quite difficult. 2 positions to be made up before we can even think of repeating the success that he had at Fuji.
Well, Jason Farmer and Nori Kleinon's trying to figure out how they can get on the attack to move through the order. Nori Kleinon's keeping it nice and consistent out there in the Red Bull colours of the Aston Martin. And still a proper charge on the way through. I mean, this is always a difficult part of the race. Drivers now starting to feel the bit of pressure coming in. Some have gone for the pit stop, as we do have one that is exiting the pits. And that is one of our low McLarens that is out of pit lane to join in with the rest of the race. But that being said, it's when you're going to pit, what you're going to do, how far are you going to carry, and also for those that have practiced race distance. Now, it's very easy to work out what your fuel per lap is going to be and what your tire usage may be in a short time. Going the full stint is always the tricky part. Can you handle the full stint with the drop-off? Are you going to be ready to fight your direct drive or your belt-driven or your gear-driven steering wheel with your load cell pedals or your Hall effect sensor pedals? Are you going to be okay enough to deal with a bit of leg cramps, a bit of arms getting some cramps, as that immediately becomes a big problem? Concentration starts to fall off. Remember, a lot of these drivers have been awake since 6 o'clock this morning, and they are racing their hearts out now.
Yeah, absolutely. Concentration is going to be the biggest factor around it. I mean, it's a long circuit, so you don't really have time to take a breath, take your eyes off the circuit and just go, okay, I'm able to just look somewhere else and just clear my mind, refocus for the next corner. It's on top of one another that you have to make sure, especially with the faster cars coming through. And you mentioned leg cramps, definitely going to be something. You spend a lot more time on throttle here than you do on the brakes, and it's going to be very difficult in order to really just stretch that right leg unless you're very skilled and able to use your left leg to press your throttle and then somehow quickly switch back over to the brake, which I don't recommend. But it's going to be quite difficult for some of these drivers, and they really have to be cautious of what they want to do. And again, the tires, as soon as they drop off, Steven, me and you both know that it increases everything that's needed from you to keep the car on track. You will lose grip, you will lose the feel of the car, and you will also have a lot more understeer coming in as those tires start to fade away.
Start trying to back it off little by little to make it work out in your favor. Gideon Bernardi sits in 7th place with Grant Leclerc chasing down right on the back of him. Fight for 7th and 8th at the moment as they start making their way through, but immediately Grant trying to carry as much momentum as possible for the Aston Martin. Just can't catch up to Gideon in that Ferrari 296. So the turbocharged V6 narrowly staying ahead over the naturally aspirated V8, but now it is no room for error as it's down the back straight they go into the slipstream. This is going to play into the favor of Grant Leclerc as he looks towards the inside line into the right-hander. Chris Stalls lines up right behind them, and Gideon trying to defend. He unfortunately has to go out but wide. That cost him time. Leclerc gets on past. Chris Stalls takes the opportunity. He gets past both GT3s without too much of an issue, but Gideon coming to fight back, goes for the inside into turn 1. He's going to carry the momentum here, but he's got to really focus on getting the marker just right to stand on the power. Unfortunately, having to brake a little bit harder as he was too tight. He needed to come a little bit to the right to close up that gap.
Unfortunately, not really able to. I mean, brilliant move from the likes of Grant Leclerc. They are getting that inside line for the final corner there, and knowing that a hypercar is coming up behind them, he knows he can use it to his advantage or to throw the likes of Gideon Bernardi off his line, because he has to let through the hypercar unless he risks ruining his own race or the likes of the hypercar. So very smart racing there from, as we see a McLaren there in the pit, in the wall there. Who is that? Conrad Martin? No, not Conrad Martin.
Not JD Kildenace. That is Gerald Fenter, who has gone and smashed up his car. So Gerald Fenter.
More McLaren damage there than anything.
That is just painful to look at.
That is a bent suspension arm. If I see it there on his front right, not being able to turn. Smack that front left, front right, not now able to turn at all, and having to rather choose to be off the racing line to avoid getting into collisions. Otherwise, very brave of him to drive it back, but also wouldn't normally recommend it, especially with a hypercar placing down on you.
Well, I think he's just trying to minimize the amount of time lost. A tow back is a long tow back to pits, and going to have to try and get that car sorted out. Unfortunately, bad damage to the car means that his race is pretty much done to try and go after the top 5. Brandon Kruger falls into 10th place overall. Got Dion Kopp to get past, and unfortunately he's got a bit of work to do there as he's 2 laps down on our GT3 field. Yes, he is 2 laps down on Dion Kopp before he can even get past into 9th position.
And that just shows what one incident can do to even a hypercar's race hopes, because it's a fast car, but it doesn't mean that he'll be able to slice through the GT3 traffic with ease. And as I take a look here, battle between Ulrich Kleinans and Jason Farmer, these two have been our closest on-field battle so far between, for all our competitors, only separated by 8/10 of a second there. Really hoping to get that gap closer is the likes of Kleinans, and hoping to get that position back from Jason Farmer. But it is going to be quite a difficult one. Most of the cars up ahead now, most of the drivers in the field, other than above Dane Brown from 8th to 1st in our GT3s, still need to pit. They are all on 26% of energy remaining. It might be enough to be to the end, even though I do highly doubt it, unless they start to save an amazing amount of fuel. But I don't think that the drivers will be able to save enough fuel to see it to the very end. So we will see some splash and dashes at the very end. Now it's a choice of, are we going to put on tires, or are we just going to dump in the fuel that's needed and stick it out to the very end?
Now, I mean, this is going to be a bit of a nightmare case scenario for the drivers as Jason Farmer and Ulrich Kleinans continue down the main straight. Jason Farmer trying to hold on to 3rd place, as he has got Ulrich Kleinans keeping the pressure on at the moment, trying to figure out how he can get on by. I mean, this is always a difficult part as we 22 minutes left of this race. It is still all to play for in the points, and we will have a completely different run towards our GT3 runners, as we do see a bit of a dive for the inside into turn 1. Didn't quite work out. Jason Farmer defends and hangs on to 3rd place. But to go back in a bit of history, round 1 was Kyle Oosthuizen along with Michael, who went and finished up in 2nd place. And we'll have to now, unfortunately, miss out this time. Dion Kamp finished in 3rd place come round 1, with Begor Krobler finishing up in 4th, and Andre Mataka rounding out our top 5 from round 1. Now we got a completely different one. Blichnote, Oosthuizen is in 2nd place, trying to figure out how he can get the run. Jason Farmer runs in 3rd place. Kleinans runs in 4th, along with Cup in 5th. So the only driver that is in the top 5 from round 1 currently lies in 2nd place. Everyone else is open cards and open games.
And that just shows that it is not over till the very, very end here. But I'm taking a look at this battle between the likes of Ulrich Kleinans and Jason Farmer in the previous sector.
Big
Jason
step
Farmer
for the Ferrari. Johan Kleinans right behind them. Tokyo Drift trying to figure out how he could get the pace. Oh, very, very big late dive to get past the likes of Ulrich Kleinans. Well done to Kleinans and Farmer for having situational awareness there to go and make sure they have enough of a gap. That could have ended badly, and Kleinans, I think, is pushing a bit too hard at the moment and may land up in a bit of a problem. As also Grant Leclerc and Gideon having a Ferrari in the middle of them as they try to make their way through. That's Jaco Kutzer, I believe, that's trying to carve his way through the traffic. But man, that was a send and a half from the hypercars, and even I think that most post officers would be rather impressed on that send. But take a look, Jason Farmer losing out 3rd position, got a little unsteady out of the final corner, and Ulrich Kleinans now holds 3rd place.
Yeah, absolutely. A great move from the likes of Ulrich Kleinans there, and really sending it, well, being aware of what the drivers behind him is going to do. But now
Kruger's out the race. Kruger is out the race. Just got reports now. Brandon Kruger of the Hypercars is a non-finisher.
What is going on tonight? It seems like Sebring's bumpy road has gone and, well, what can we say, claimed its next victim. Unfortunately, the bumpiness of Sebring proving to be difficult for some of our Hypercar drivers to maintain, even some of our GT3 drivers. Now, this is 2 races in a row where the likes of the Omnius Gaming team has only 1 driver able to score points.
12 cars out of this race, unfortunately. 12 cars will not see the end of Sebring for round 2. That is a big blow as we see Kirian Badani into the pits. Mike McGear will miss out pit lane. He's going to go a little bit further to try and get his way towards the top. I mean, this is always a tough one as we see Ulrich Kleinans once again in a bit of a brawl trying to hold his line. And that is Johan Kleinans again going past him. Johan Kleinans must have lost the car somewhere and unfortunately lost drive. Getting a little bit too wild there. Oh man, he is sliding. He is battling. That Ferrari is looking like it's driving on oil at this point and not able to carry the run. He went flying past Ulrich Kleinans yet again through that fight.
Yeah, it seems like the Ferrari is definitely struggling with some tire grip remaining in the car. Now, the question is, did he push too hard earlier, and what's the bit of the rubber that was there at the start of the race? He has gone off the track before. Maybe that probably sticking to the tires now, just trying to clean it. But he needs, word of advice would be from me, if I was his crew chief or part of his team, would be tone it down. Be careful. Do not try and push the car to its absolute limit now. There is still time left in this race. We might make it up in the pit stop, but if you go and risk the car now, you might even throw away a podium finish, and that is not what he or the team would have wanted.
Oh, just taking a look at how he's fighting out there just with the car. Remember, he took the odd tire choice as well to make it work out, and it's just not having a fun time out there. Lots of damage to the front. You can see just that front right not making contact with the ground. It's having to lift up a little bit, and the suspension taking a bit of a hit as we got down into 9% for Crystals in his engine, or into the virtual battery, and that is now trying to make his way through. Each of the drivers pushing a little bit harder here to try and figure out just some room to get a little bit further up. But take a look, Jan Blicknout getting past the likes of Vietia Boert. No, it wasn't Vietia Boert. I think that was Beggar Grobler that he was getting past. Yes, it was. Beggar Grobler in 11th position out in that Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo. Now we'll have to deal with Kyle Oosthuizen, who fights out for second place in the GT3s. Ulrich Kleinans, Jason Farmer, they have split from one another, and it's all starting to settle down through the order.
Things are now in this late stage of the race where there might be small battles up and down the field, but they will be calming down a bit more as the field starts to find its rhythm. But the Hypercar,
that was Kleinans again. This is Kleinans going through our leaders. He should have actually gotten through them a lot quicker, so he lost out some serious grip around the circuit and is properly battling to keep his 499 in check.
That's quite interesting, because I was about to bring up the point that maybe it might be one of the other non-factory hypercars for Ferrari, but it doesn't seem to be like that, and that is quite strange. I wonder what is going on with that Ferrari, if all is well underneath that prancing horse's bonnet. But let's take a look at our battle here for our lead of LMGTE. So far, Jan Blicknout able to really maintain that gap there, while Kyle Oosthuizen has fallen back. But we did see last week how Kyle Oosthuizen is able to snatch that final position in the dying minutes of a pit stop. He's able to just go, he might be able to extend the stint a bit longer compared to that of his opponent, and that will give him some clean air to run and able to really open up a gap and shorten his pit stop. It's all down to strategy and how he's going to manage as he has to navigate through that back marker, that Aston Martin there. He is really hoping to keep the car on track, but it will be proven difficult if things do not work out as he hopes.
Now, a couple of drivers also just watching from pit lane, not quite happy on their race. Dan Brown getting past the likes of Conrad Martin, who dives into pit lane, up, down, and heading out to try and get ahead of Mike McGeer, who comes into pit lane. And there is Johan Kleinans finally getting into the box, pushing a bit hard. And I think his tires eventually called it quits at this point, and now just trying to focus how to get going. He was also quite low in his energy. Crystals on 5, Kutzer on 6%. Drivers trying to get themselves sorted out. Bernard Barkes in second place is now towards the sharp end, as we do see our 9th place car of, that is one of our Mercedes, that's a 63, that is getting some work done on it, and had to be moved into the box, was parked a little bit skew there to be able to continue on. Crystals, however, still leads out the pack and trying to break away from the field. He's getting past the likes of Conrad Martin, opens up a wide berth just to avoid the GT3, not wanting to get too caught up. But that being said, Kyle Oosthuizen out in first place. Jan Blicknout, Jason Farmer, and the likes of Dion Kopp all in pit lane and getting themselves sorted out.
And this is exactly what I mentioned earlier, Stephen. He might be able to go longer than all his other competitors, maybe having looked after the stars a bit more, but he did have a spin earlier on in the race with a bit of a collision between himself and Blichnout, which caused him to spin around, get those tires dirty, and having to clean it up. And now, because of other drivers' unfortunate mistakes, he's able to be back in second and close to Blichnout, meaning even though he had the incidents, he was able to still go and claw his way back, as you see him run a bit wide there at the exit off the head. But now, will he go pit now, or will he stay out longer? Because he does have some clean air in front of him and will be able to pick up some slipstream of the other back markers, and his tires are warmer compared to the likes of Johan Blichnout.
Well, Dion Cup coming out of the pits, losing out to Grant Leclerc, who now carries on the momentum with the Aston Martin. Dion now hunting down that top 5 and will be starting to make up some room. Goes around the outside, picked up a huge amount of pace. Grant was a little tight on the exit, coming out of the final corner. Now trying to keep wide towards the pit wall, dives in and loses out to Dion Cup, who just snatches that inside line, says thank you very much. Grant Leclerc trying to come back at him, but will not have the momentum. It's just unfortunate. Into turn 1, you gotta be brave. You can actually go rather deep into the corner, as long as you keep that cone on the left-hand side that's hanging off the fence as your apex. That is the apex that you want to aim for, to then get flat onto the power and drive out of the corner.
And absolutely, pretty much a Uno reverse from Dion Cup on Grant there. Previously, we saw Grant be the one to put it on the inside of the final corner and then stick it up on the inside for turn 1. And now Dion Cup has gone and said, ha, you can do it, I can do better. Uno reverse on you, I'm going to be able to make the move and make it even better for you that you're not going to be able to make the move on me back again, as well as be able to pull a bit of a gap on you. So great driving out there from our drivers that are still currently running out.
Well, it is still a long race being said, and taking a look at some of the VIPs out there that's joined our drivers out in the pit lane. We've got the likes of Yuppie Sermons, who's actually one of our iRacing drivers, who goes and enjoys a lot of these cars in the GT3 and Hypercar classes out on iRacing, and he's now keeping an eye on some of the action here. And possibly might see Yuppie Simons coming to enjoy a little bit of LMU in the future. Who knows? It is a possibility, as all our drivers trying out different sims around the world. Oh, big move coming in for Grant Leclerc as he dives into pit lane, and now we'll be losing out to Dion Cup a little bit further. But Kyle Oosthuizen and Crystals have come out of pit lane. They have done their final pit stop with 10 minutes and 50 seconds to go here at Sebring.
And this is exactly what I meant, Stephen. This is a strategy that the likes of Oosthuizen has employed in last week, and is still again proven that once he hits that clean air, he is gone. He has pulled a 2-second gap where previously he was almost a 1 second behind the likes of Blichnout. He chooses when to pit and is able to make a bit of a gap so he can go in, get it done what's needed to be done, and just continue driving without having to worry. And that is just what I'm going to say is some masterful strategy from himself and his team, going in, waiting for his opponents to pit, push the car to its limits, and then get a monster of an in-lap in order to maximize the potential out of those tires and not lose as much heat out of them, or even time out on circuits.
Gideon Benardi and the likes of Begor Krobler keeping the chase on one another, fighting out for 9th and 10th in position, and continuing to try and figure out what is going to be the big game plan here. You can see Begor Krobler going on and off the brakes, tried going for the apex through the final corner, stuck very close to where there's a big divot actually on the track that unsettles the car, but he's doing everything he can to try and get past Gideon. Switches round to the outside and now to the inside, gets on by Gideon, down a position. The Ferrari 296 is a lot more maneuverable in and out through the corners, but it is extremely difficult to fight out in a straight line here on LMU. And also, we've got Yevon Davis, who's going and shouting out for Ulrich Clements, who currently holds 3rd place in the GT3s. So lots and lots of support coming in from the pit wall, and that does keep the drivers motivated to push that a little bit harder.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see the fans going out there and cheering on the drivers, and it's also something that if they do have us in their ears, I would not recommend you guys having us in your ears, because we do sometimes tend to get excited here in the commentary box, especially when there's massive action going out on track. But it is something that they would like to hear and see that, listen, I've got a fan out in the grandstand, I'm going to perform for them, even if it is their mother, their father, even if it's their sister, or even if their grandma. Also, if your grandma is watching, massive respect to your grandparents. But really, it's something that motivates drivers to perform better and really push themselves to go and just give it their best, which is something that I love to see.
Johan Blichnout starting to get a little bit quicker in his pace, trying to close up the gap to Carl Oosthuizen. Does put a wheel wrong, however, loses a little bit of time out there. Now needs to figure out how to close up the gap to Carl Oosthuizen. The two of them are keeping rather close to one another, but with 8 minutes and 10 seconds left in the race, you're going to have to throw caution to the wind. You're going to have to make them pass work in your favor if you wish to walk home with the points. Carl Oosthuizen is relying on getting yet another victory here at the round 2 here in Sebring for Le Mans Ultimate out on RaceFace.Pro. But this is going to be a run for the championship because Blichnout didn't have the easiest of runs in round 1. He now can make an impact to move further up the order. I mean, this is always a tough time considering round 1 he landed up with a DNF.
It's definitely going to be a bit of a better result compared to round 1, and hoping to really staying in that slipstream. But I don't know what it is, but Oosthuizen isn't able to, out of these small tight corners, able to get a better drive, especially the hairpins and onto the run of the long back straight, just able to get a better run compared to the likes of Blichnout. I don't know if Blichnout might have used his tires a bit more or what's going on, but Oosthuizen just being able to get a bit more there every time when looking at the gap as they cross one of the microsector lines. One can say the gap just keeps on growing, but as soon as they go into braking, of course, it gets smaller. That's normal to be expected. But let's just take a look here at this little gap as they head into this bit of a twisty bit of a section going on here. It's again, the gap goes down, it compresses as everybody stamps on their brakes, but as soon as they go onto the throttle, it goes up again. But it's also which one is able to get the best throttle output as they exit the corner. And this corner that's coming up here is the one that I'm talking about, Steven. It's the one where Carl Oosthuizen, this whole long stretch is where he gets the legs on Blichnout, just able to get the best out of it as he exits his corner. Yes, he hits a bit of that apex, he knows where that track limit is, but then again, just look, from 7.1 or from 0.71 it goes up to 7.7 before even they go for the next braking zone, maybe even above 8 tenths it goes, and then hard on the brakes again in order. He just gets a phenomenal drive out of these slow, very slow twisty corners.
Relying on mechanical grip to power his way out versus aero. That is always the trade-off on this circuit. What are you going to pick for the longest time? How are you going to keep these tires going? And Jan is actually making a really good bit of headway at the moment, but Carl Oosthuizen still holds the gap, 0.6 of a second between them, and it is still being broken down. Blichnout got the bit between his teeth right now to try get that first place, as he's now brought it right up to 0.3 of a second. Carl Oosthuizen now has a lot of pressure on him. JD Gildenhuys and Mike McGeer completing their final pit stop in the final 5 minutes and 20 seconds left of this race. Chris Stills will be seeing the fighting duo of the GT3s. Take a look, Blichnout trying to go a little bit tighter on the inside line to make his way through, and it's going to be a proper fight. Blichnout and Carl Oosthuizen push that little bit harder, trying to figure out what is going to be the game plan.
We head into the final 5 minutes of this race, and these two are our closest battle on track by far. Now it's really going to be one mistake will let the other one through, and now it's going to be the job of Blichnout to keep the mirrors of Oosthuizen full, to distract him into braking zones, fake a move to the inside, throw him off his brake mark, and maybe hope that he locks up, sending him into a straight line, not able to make the corner. But look right behind them, we've got our Hypercar leader, the likes of Chris Stills, closing down and getting involved in this battle, threading the needle, going from left to right, making the move between them, and now also having a bit of an effect between the two of them. Also almost looked like they were side by side there for one moment, but no, Blichnout able to capitalize a bit more on the Hypercar slicing through them. Oosthuizen not able to get the same drive that he had previously and losing out. Now these two are getting closer and closer to one another, which will be putting pressure on Oosthuizen. He's not able to just cruise to victory now. He has to defend, make that BMW bigger than it already is, and really hope that the likes of Blichnout is not able to sneak on through.
Now they're fighting it out. Grant Leclerc and Bago Krobler a little bit further down. They are also having their own battle in the GT3 class as Crystals, Johan Kleinans, Bernard Barkhuizen are the last remainder of our hypercars. Jaco Kutzer also a retirement out of the race. So 3 hypercars to finish, but our GT3 field is definitely alive as we do see Blucknote trying to hunt the inside line of Kyle Oosthuizen, and the two of them are absolutely monstrous with one another. Johan Blucknote making a lot on the braking, but just not able to get the nose to tuck in underneath the likes of Kyle Oosthuizen at the moment. He does, however, force his way through. Nearly a bit of contact between both of them into the hairpin. And on their way out, these two are now sharing paint with one another. Kyle Oosthuizen and Blucknote will fight their way through to the end. And this is a fight for first place. This is points in the bag for Blucknote if he can get into first place after a abysmal race. Round 1, round 2 working his favor. Kyle Oosthuizen took the win in round 1 and now trying to make it be a lightning strike twice. He manages to carry the momentum. Oh, side-by-side contact, both of them shoulder to shoulder. But Blucknote takes the pass done and dusted and now charges on. But Kyle Oosthuizen now can put the pressure back onto Blucknote. He lines up around the outside, not allowing Blucknote to move. Blucknote trying to buck him to the outside, rubbing paint with one another. Blucknote going and really shouldering Kyle Oosthuizen around. This is extremely close racing, but also a very dangerous game when both drivers are trying to push each other to each side of the circuit, and not quite how you want to go racing.
No, absolutely not, Stephen. If they're not careful, it might draw the attention of the stewards and really have to be mindful of how they approach it. I mean, earlier we already had a contact between Blucknote and Oosthuizen, which caused Oosthuizen to drop from the lead all the way to 6th. And now it was something that I was keeping in my mind, making sure that Blucknote is mindful and Oosthuizen also of where they place their cars in order to avoid it. But now it looks like Oosthuizen, unfortunately, not having the legs, maybe carrying some aero damage on that car, not being able to close the gap down again to the likes of Blucknote. But we did say on the straight the BMW is quite strong, but in a slipstream it's even faster. But now, again, on the brakes, who is going to be the best as Blucknote gets a clean run, but Oosthuizen goes for a deeper line in order to get much more speed out of it and get as close as possible to the likes of Blucknote in the slipstream. The gap is going down 0.3.1, the sub 0.3 now, going hard on the brakes. Who's going to be there? Following one another, but behind them again, another hypercar is closing down, who is going to spoil the party around the outside, closes off that line for Oosthuizen to run wide is the hypercar, as well as here. This is going to make everything difficult. 2 hypercars coming through. It's going to make things very difficult.
That's Kleinans and Bernard Barkhuizen of 2nd and 3rd in the hypercars. They also quite close to one another. Unfortunately, Bernard Barkhuizen 1 lap down, just trying to unlap himself. 38 seconds to go, Cam. Who do you think's going to get this one? Johan Blucknote or Kyle Oosthuizen at the end of the race?
Well, Stephen, I was never really a gambling man, mainly because whenever I gambled anything on luck, it would always work out in going against me. But so far, I do have to say Blucknote is performing much better than the likes of Oosthuizen. I don't know if it's because of damage to the car or the tires on Blucknote being a bit more look after now, hoping just still leading the race, but really just dialing it back and finally going and giving it all as we go into the final 10 seconds of the race. Next time they come around, it will be the final time, as the leaders still need to cross the line for our hyperclass cars. We have a yellow flag pop up in one of our sectors there, but now the leader has to go and cross the line, and that will be the end. So this is predominantly, we can say, the final lap of the race. Side by side into a hard braking zone. Oh, a bit of having to back out there is Oosthuizen, really sticking his nose into any gap that is given to him, but he is as close as he was, as close as he's been for an attack, but now he has to back out again. It's hard on the brakes here, but now it's again a flowing piece where you just dab on the brakes to get the nose pointed into the right direction. It's going over the curbs, mounting them in the hard of the brakes again. But I don't think Oosthuizen has anything left in that tank in order to get past Blucknote, unless he's very brave into the final corner and shoves Blucknote out of the way.
Omnius Gaming will be looking to take the top spot in the GT3 with Project Vapor finishing up in 2nd place. But it's Crystals who'll take the victory here in the hypercar class with Johan Kleinans in 2nd place. Bernard Barkhuizen takes 3rd in our hypercars. 1 corner to go, and it looks like Blucknote has kept the run through. Oosthuizen trying to close up the gap, but it is going to be Johan Blucknote who will take the lead in the GT3s, and Blicknote takes the win here at Sebring, with Carl Oosthuizen putting a brilliant fight into second place. Ulrich Kleinans kept it clean, kept himself going, will finish up in third place, with Jason Farmer trying to make up some run behind him. Unfortunately, a little too far back to try and get that pass done. Behind them will be the likes of Dion Cup, Dan Brown, Conrad Martin, Bago, Krobler, Grant McClure, Gideon Bernardi, Virtia Berta, Mike McGeer, Dennis Gillett, JD Fildenes, Gerald Fenter will come across the line to round out their positions right up until 18th overall, 15th in class.
Yeah, absolutely great race shape between all of our drivers out here tonight, but I do hope that it will not be settled somehow in the stewarding room, as we do see some contacts happening early on throughout this race. It's something that we hope never has to happen, and hope it doesn't come down to that. But it's something that the teams will have to discuss amongst themselves, and if they feel that they can capitalize on whatever outcome might come from that instance being reported. But we saw some great racing from our GT3s tonight, and I mean, Stephen, it's something that LMU Championship has delivered for everybody out here. It's some great racing up and down. Season 1, we saw it go down to the very, very wire, and tonight it seems that it's going to be the start. It picked up directly where it left off.
Well, that's it. LMU has come to stay and has really set the hearts ablaze. I've got to say, I'm really looking forward to when the LMP3s, and even when we get some more LMP2s to come into the fray, really make it multi-class action. But that being said, it has been rather close in the GT3 category. Unfortunately, not so much in the Hypercars this season, as Chris Still's taking the win in the Hypercars. Yet again, a brilliant drive on his part to move his way forward. Unfortunate circumstances came in for our Ferraris and the likes of Jean Fiers, landing up with a lot of damage to his Toyota. That puts him out. Nathan Watts, who was also in the Peugeot, unfortunately not able to get that car across the line, battling with a lot of setup, and we'll have to go back to the drawing board of how to make that car tick. That being said, we did have a lot of, well, victims in this fight. 12 cars not able to come across the finish line due to various issues, and honestly, that is an absolute heartbreak. But once again, Sebring is not an easy circuit to contend with, and many of the drivers are well aware of that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we mentioned earlier, Sebring, very difficult, very bumpy, and throughout this whole week, the paddock has been a buzz saying that they need to figure out what they're going to do with the car. It's been struggling with them, many of the drivers struggling to get a proper drive out of the car, especially when discussing about lap times, saying, well, listen, they're not close to the front runners' lap times, they don't know what to do. And especially drivers who have switched from a GT3 car over to the Hypercar, it's a new system, it's a new electronic system they need to figure out how to deploy the battery, how does the downforce work properly within the car, and how to maximize stuff. It's a whole bunch of different set of rules that they need to figure out and what they're going to do. And then those that jump from Hypercars, GT3s, one might seem a bit easier, but it's still something else. You get so used to the fast flowing car going just underneath you and just flying past the other cars. Now you're back into a slower class car, and you need to figure out how you're going to manage that car to the very, very end.
It's always a tough one out there. And as we wait for our drivers to come through to come and have a chat to us in the commentary box, it's been an incredible one. We're actually going to go down to the track and catch up on the replays while we get our drivers ready for some fun. But Cam, you have got the list. You have got the drivers out there. And I see there's a couple of faces at the doors waiting to step inside to come and have a chat to us. So you wouldn't mind leading out the way for our race 2 winners of our LMU Championship Season 2 right here at Sebring.
Yeah, well, first let's welcome on the Ulrich Kleinans. They're going to get him situated there with a headset there. Ulrich, welcome to the commentary box. This is your first time on the commentary in the commentary box, finishing on the podium. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how the comms box normally works. The coffee by the door is mine and Steve. You can take Steve's, you can leave mine, and also don't leave the door open. The aircon is very nice out here, but just kidding, all that aside. Ulrich, welcome to the commentary box, and welcome to the podium for your first season here at the RaceFace LMU Championship Season 2. Take us through how you experienced the race out there tonight.
Well, first of all, it was so stressful. I'm sweating. I need a shower now. But yeah, thank you guys so much for letting me have this opportunity to race with you guys. It's fun. And yeah, I've never thought by myself I will be on a podium, But yeah, here I am.
Well, you mentioned that it being difficult out there on the track and everything. I mean, I mentioned earlier in the broadcast that Sebring has its own characteristics. It's a very tricky track to really master in terms of its bumps and how to manage it. Take us through your preparations that you did for this race specifically. I mean, it's something that bothered many of the drivers out there. How did you tackle this unique circuit?
Well, for me, it's practice, 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 and more practice. Doing and the thing is, I'm so glad for this week. It's the fixed setup race at Sebring also for the rookie class. So today I did like 3 races after each other. So yeah, and that prepared me. But this Aston Martin on Sebring, it's a tricky one to drive.
Well, I believe it's not just the Aston Martin, but any other car out there. But today we did also again see the dominance of the front engine cars. I mean, it's BMW, and then a British brand in the form of your Aston Martin. It's something that seems to be popping up a lot more. The front engine cars are absolutely dominating compared to our mid or rear engine cars. Do you think it's just something that suits the track a bit more, or what would you write it down to?
Well, the thing is, if I must go back to the open lobbies, the Lamborghinis were dominating there. So yeah, I think it was just unfortunate for Mr. Pretorius, but yeah. But I told myself, BMW 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I cannot do that. I need to take that third one.
Well, you've absolutely broken the podium lockout for the BMW brand and going to be spoiling a bit of their part today. But you also have a few fans out there in the grandstand that have always come through for both races of far, just cheering you on, saying, "Go Ulrich, go Kleinhans." And I know it's you, you're the Kleinhans, not the other Kleinhans in Hypercar. I'm going to give you the floor. Give it, floor's yours. Keep it PG as always, and yeah,
Yes.
give a shout out. Say all you want.
Okay, to all the people that had my back today, thank you so much. To tell you that it means a lot to me is basically understatement. Thank you so much for the hypercars for being patient with us because me and Farmer, we were battling like crazy. And for the hypercars to sit behind us and give us the space and then to pass us, thank you so much for that. But yeah, everybody, thank you so much. I cannot express how grateful I am for this because yeah, RaceFace is top in South Africa, and for me to be here, just to drive with you guys, is really a big honor. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ulrich, there for some kind words. I'm going to let you go and go celebrate with your team as well as your family there. And we hope to see you. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week as we go racing. And I hope to see you again on the podium. Thank you, Ulrich, for joining us in the comments box.
Bye bye.
Now, Stephen, I'm going to bring in. It's not fair to bring in the likes of just the second place finish of our GT3s. These two shared a great battle until the very, very end, and that's the likes of Johan Blichnout and Carl Oosthuizen. I want to bring them in both and get their thoughts with one another. And now, gents, short reminder, open mics. It's getting broadcasted out there. Use the fighting in the paddocks if you need to. Yeah, but here we use kind words. But no, I'm just kidding. Welcome, Carl. Welcome, Jan. You guys shared a great battle to the very, very end. Carl, I'm going to take it first to you. You showed again that you go for the late boxing strategy, and it seems to work out for you. But tonight it didn't work out. What went wrong regarding that? It seems like your pace just dropped off a little bit there at the very, very end.
Uh, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't plan for late pit stops. I just pit when I have to, to be honest. And when I came out the pits, it felt like I don't know, I ran out of tire, and yeah, I just couldn't get around it. And Johan was catching specifically in the little sector there by the pit entry. He was like pulling me 3-4 tenths every single lap. But yeah, I guess just the pressure and ran out of talent, to be honest. And yeah, nothing against my car or anything. There's no excuses. Johan just had a much better pace and better race than me.
Well, a very gentleman's statement there from Carl, but Johan from your side, how did you experience those last 5-10 minutes of the race? I mean, you were in front, and then Carl was in front, and it was a back and forth between you two, keeping both myself, Stephen, and the fans in the grandstands on the edge of our seat. How was that looking in the mirror and seeing the car closing down on you, and then finally hunting it down and defending like mad in the final few minutes?
Hi, Cameron. Yeah, I'm still shaking. It was nerve-wracking. I haven't had a good race like this in a long time. Yeah, and with the boxing strat, I just went in early to see if maybe the undercut can help, but almost shot myself in the foot there. But luckily, Carl's car didn't forgive him as much as mine did. Yeah, and
I won't say my car didn't forgive me. You were just far better at the track. I mean, you qualified pole position, and you were consistent. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
yeah, Sebring is almost a favorite of mine, I would say. But yeah, I didn't have enough practice, but I surprised myself.
Well, surprises is always something that I like to hear, especially when you do not expect to be a win in your category. But Jan Blignout, I'm going to pop it again down to you. I mean, you're from part of the Omnius Gaming team now, with two of the drivers popping over into the Hyperclass car, and unfortunately not having the great success they had last season in the GT3 cars. Is that something that the team still needs to adjust about, or is that just I don't know, just something that's not clicking just yet, and the team still needs to spend some time understanding that Ferrari 409P?
I think the guys have the skill to drive the cars. I just think the track was not forgiving as most other tracks are. Because of no ABS and all that stuff. It's like they did some magician tricks when we go into the last corner. It's just a puff of smoke and they're gone. And you're like just trying to see which side are they going to pass you. And you just, yeah, like I said, just a puff of smoke and nowhere to be seen again.
Well, you gave something to brag about for the Omnius Gaming squad there, taking the win in the GT3 class there. But I'm going to give them, and then also for Kyle, again, performing absolutely phenomenally for the Project Vapor squad there. But Kyle, I'm going to give you the floor first, if you want to give out a shout out to anybody, lay down some fighting words for any competitors, some who might be in the box, some who might not be in the box, but always keep it friendly as possible. But, you know, you can always shout some stuff out there.
I don't really have fighting words. I just look forward to a good, clean race like I had with Johan. I mean, we had a little incident and he gave the position back. And, you know, that's the sort of stuff I look forward to for having fun. So the rest of the paddock, I mean, I'll see you guys next week. Shout out to the guys there at Team CSA Sim, specifically Yoppie Simmons. I know he's watching. You'll appreciate that. And just, yeah, thanks, Johan. And then lastly, I don't know who Project Vapor is. That's
Okay.
I'm new here.
That's something between myself and Steve that we might have missed in our notes. So we're going to blame our production squad for that one.
No, I'm just saying I don't know who that is, and I'll stay out of that. But yeah, I look forward to having a good race with Johan next week at wherever we go.
I also don't know. I just normally just get on the plane and get transported to wherever the plane takes me. But yeah, well, some great words from you there. I'm going to let you go celebrate with your team. And I know your peers in the stands celebrating, holding a big banner saying, thank you for driving for us and keeping our name high. Carl, I'm going to let you go. Thanks again for joining us in the Comms Box. Now, Jan Blignout, I'm going to give you the mic and give you the chance to shout out to anyone that you want, or lay down the challenge for any of the drivers out there on the grid.
Stephen, Cameron, just want to say thank you for you guys making this possible for us once again. Do really appreciate it, even though we don't show it as much. And thanks to the sponsors, and then for everyone watching us, you need to keep coming or I'll kidnap you and glue your eyes to the screen.
Some very interesting words they're forcing. I mean, I believe that more people should watch motorsport. It's the purest form of entertainment besides, of course, South Africa, rugby. But it is some of the greatest entertainment and keeps you right to the very end of the seat. But, Johan, I'm going to let you go celebrate with your team. Well done on a phenomenal race, and I can't wait to see what you do next round at Spa-Francorchamps.
Cool.
Great stuff.
Now, Stephen, I'm going to hand you over to our Hyperclass cars, because I know you're itching to ask some questions for our winner, as well as our third place finisher of our Hypercar cars.
And we're going to bring in Jan Kleinans to come and have a chat to us. Jan, welcome to the commentary box. And a difficult race for you this time around at Sebring. How are you feeling?
Evening, guys. Yeah, good overall. Can't be too unhappy with the second place, especially after my race start was a bit of a disaster. But I was happy overall. Chris is extremely quick on the stack, so second was best case scenario, and here I am.
Well, let's talk about the strategy. We saw towards the end of the stint tires starting to have a big drop off. What was the strategy going on there? Because it seemed like no pace at the start, middle you were fine, and then towards the end, the Ferrari was just a bucking Bronco to deal with.
Look, I was actually fairly happy with my car, but I was the only one who went with hards at the front. My whole plan was to ruin this slight bit because I got some damage on the front end, which didn't help with tire temps. So in hindsight, I wish I had gone just medium.
And cutting your way through the traffic, how was it out there? Because as we see on screen, a near miss between yourself and likes of Fafias, who landed up with a bit of contact. You just had a slight tap to him. I mean, that must have been one of those, this is my race, done, adjusted moments. So then just to come out sort of clean at the end of it, and then to try and cut your way through the GT3s with that little bit of a heart and mouth as well, must have been a bit of a difficult time.
Yeah, look, that was scary. I won't lie. It's one of those situations where you have a rough idea of where the car should be going, but you just have to guess and get out of there as quick as you can. It's unfortunate for both of them. I think it was a close race between all the hypers up at the front, so it would have been a good race. GT3s, I think the guys were honestly very, very respectful. All around, it wasn't too hard getting by, but frustrating because you close up on the GT3 so quickly with the hypers. It's all just about managing the time loss. Definitely worse than last stack for sure.
Well, it's points in the bag. Second place now firmly ahead of Bernard Barkhuizen. Anything you'd like to say to all the petrol heads coming out to the virtual grandstands, cheering you guys around Sebring? I mean, it's absolutely wonderful to see everyone out there, but also to the sponsors, to the admins, to the drivers and the teams that are out on the circuit with you, or those looking in saying, maybe it's worth going in for a bit of a race as well.
As always, thanks to everyone who's making it happen, the sponsors, you guys, the admins. Thank you to everyone supporting. My team, Delta Negative, who we're having a good run. We'll keep it going, but we're all doing well. So thanks for all the support.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Jan Kleinans finishing out second place in the hypercars. Near misses during the course of the race, Cameron, and honestly sounding a lot calmer than I would ever be at that situation. That being said, let's go towards the fringe and bring in Delta Negative's very own, the likes of Chris Stoltz, to come into it. Chris, welcome to the commentary box. Another victory out here at Sebring, and extending your gap a little bit further into the championship. How was the race out there?
Hi, Stephen. No, I'm really happy. It was really difficult. The track is very bumpy and a lot of traffic. So yeah, just happy to get the win.
And let's talk about navigating, because you had to try and play a little bit of I'll wait for you moments when you saw all the fights out in the GT3, knowing that you've got a little bit of pressure coming on the back of you, likes of Johan Kleinans, Bernard Barkhuizen, John Fears, Brandon Kruger also tried throwing in his hat into the ring as well. Knowing that you've got those type of drivers behind you, chasing you, is there any urgency to get round the GT3s, especially on a very narrow circuit where understeering GT3s makes it a little bit harder to get on by?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, for sure. Everyone is incredibly quick, and so you can't waste too much time because they could catch them at a better opportunity or take more risk and very quickly take multiple seconds out of your lead. So you can't be too patient, but I also know that you can very quickly end your race. So it's about managing risk and knowing when you can send it and when you just have to be a little bit more careful on more tricky corners, especially the last corner is always scary. Speed difference is very big. So yeah, there is a sense of urgency, but also you have to play it carefully. So yeah, for sure.
Well, that being said, all done and dusted. Looking towards round 3 as we fly over to Belgium to race at Spa-Francorchamps. A beautiful circuit that does play into the hands of the Ferrari 499s. Is there any concern for the Peugeot to have that little bit more pace, that mechanical grip that is needed to fight his way up and down the circuit?
Yeah, I mean, we can take last season as an example. I managed to get pole and it was a very quick lap. I was very happy with the lap, but in the race, you can very quickly see where it's difficult to keep that lead. Coming into the up Kemmel Straight and Upper Rouge and onto the Kemmel, it's difficult to keep it because the Ferraris are so much faster in the straights. So I'll try and see what I can do. Hopefully get pole and lead after that section. In the middle sector, the Peugeot is very quick. Got a lot of downforce to work with. So, I mean, it's pretty much the same story on all these tracks. It's about hopefully getting pole position and staying ahead because it's incredibly difficult to overtake. And unfortunately, the Peugeot also struggles on the start. So it has its strengths and its weaknesses, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, before I let you go to enjoy the celebrations and the champagne here at beautiful Sebring, anything you would like to say to all the sponsors, to all the drivers, the teams, and most importantly, all the petrol heads out in the virtual grandstands cheering on as we carry on for Season 2 here of Le Mans Ultimate Championship in RaceFace.Pro?
Yeah, I mean, same as every week, I just want to say thank you to everyone who makes this possible, especially you guys sitting and watching us race and commentating. It makes the experience so enjoyable, and having everyone watch the races is really cool and wouldn't be possible without you guys. And then just a shout out to my teammate Jan, who's always pushing me, and unfortunate for Yuan, who had a bit of an unlucky race. And same with Barkes, and he had really good pace, and I think had an issue in the pits or something. So shout out to them as well. Keep pushing, guys. I will, and we'll have a good season. And then lastly, I just want to say shout out to my dad, who's always watching, and also my girlfriend, who we had our anniversary yesterday, and we cut it short so that I could practice for today. So thanks.
I hope you have got tons of chocolates and that spa day for her.
100%, Stephen, 100%.
Okay, because that, you might run a bit short. That Peugeot might turn from a 9X8 into a 206 in 3 seconds flat.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, well done on the victory and well done on the race. First place in the Hypercar class goes to Crystals. But Cameron, that being said, we're going to be saying farewell to the beautiful circuit of Sebring and moving on to the beautiful circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, this is an interesting track that last season flipped everything on its head, where drivers also tend to run into some difficult situations of how long they can really push these cars, and especially with the hypercars, a little bit more spread out, but our GT3s a little bit closer in the championship points. Pressure is on to perform to get your way to the top.
And absolutely, Spa is definitely a bit of a challenging circuit, very technical. It's a mix between long straights, technical corners, especially on the downhill section. The sector 2 is very, very difficult. So the cars are going to have to be optimized, either capitalize on top end speed for the Kemmel Straight and the run from Stavelo all the way to the bus stop through Blanchemont, where you do not really lift, or you have to capitalize on the very, very tight technical sector, which is sector 2, for the tighten into Pouan as well as the hairpin. So drivers will need to be very, very cautious of how they're going to tackle it and how they're going to make it. But Spa is always been proven one to be a phenomenal circuit. It's one of my top favorite circuits to see racing on as well as to race on. So to see the drivers, how they're going to manage it is going to be something that I look forward to see.
It's going to be an interesting one. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to keep an eye on it because this is only the second round of the championship. But more to come here at RaceFace.Pro. Tomorrow night, we have got our Sette Corse Competizione round 2 that's going to be coming out and having a bit of fun. So keep an eye out on the channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, everything that every YouTuber says, and leave a comment letting know what was your favorite part of the race. Who do you think is going to be able to take the championship? I'm looking forward to seeing who's got the crystal ball that can dictate who wins the championship by the end of the season. And that being said, if you're interested in joining up with any of our championships, head over to SimGrid, look up RaceFace.Pro, or down in the description as well. You can go and select the link and be part of the championship fight. Join us out on Discord. Come and have a chat to us out in the pits. We love to get all the feedback coming in from the drivers, spectators, and family members that are going and enjoying all the racing here. But a massive shout out to our production crew. We got Tim that was behind all the camera work, doing an incredible job there. Jim, who was out as our flag marshal. Cameron DeBastos going and being our professional driver / commentator in the commentary box as well. And we're looking forward to seeing all the racing. Massive shout out to all our sponsors. EG Evolved for jumping on board, Rhino Utility, SBR, Virtual Motorheads, and Simulator Cave for being part of this incredible season's championship racing here on Lamar Ultimate. And we look forward to Belgium next week. So keep an eye on that as we carry on. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, from the THC Productions, from Cameron DeBastos. Well, before that, Cameron, any last words from your side that you would like to say before we go and enjoy a bit of Sebring? I've got to say, the swamp on the left-hand side does have some great catfish, might I add. And no one had to get hit by the toads. That happened to a 499 last year.
No, I don't think I'm gonna let you go jump in the swamp if you want to go. But no, well, final thoughts from my side is I'm really eager to see out the championship. I'm gonna put my bet already in for a hypercar class winner, and that is going to be Crystals. He has performed phenomenally well. We keep on writing him off. I kept writing him off in the end. Well, in season 1 due to the 4.9, the Peugeot not really performing as well it does in real life, but in virtual world it seems to be phenomenal. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going over to Belgium with a land of waffles and just phenomenal racing. But again, Stephen, I'm going to let you go jump in the swamp while I go and just look at the military planes there in the hangars there on the other side of the track. And again, I'm thankful. Well, thank you to everybody for joining us in the virtual grants as well as joining us in the future if you go and watch this back. And then from my side, Stephen thanked everybody, but he doesn't thank himself. I want to say thank you to my co-commentator, Stephen Koenig, for sitting in the commentary box again and listening to me yammer on about who knows what. But again, thank you very much, Stephen, for allowing me to be in the commentary box, as well as THC Production for giving me this opportunity. But again, Stephen, I'm just going to sit on the swamp embankment, or whatever it's called, while you go swim and catch some catfish. I'm not going to eat catfish. I'm rather just going to go and get a chicken schnitzel with some mushroom sauce on it. But from my side, I want to say thank you for everybody for joining, and I'll see you all next week for our round 3 at Spa-Francorchamps here on the LMU Championship Season 2 on RaceFace.Pro.